Hi Nabil, I'm very happy to see that you have purchased an essay correction package and that you've completed your first set of essays. So let's take a look and see what you wrote here. This is about staying in your job for your whole life or switching jobs. So let's see what you said. There are two sides of a coin, two sides of the coin when discussing the potential consequences related to changing job positions. On the one hand, if workers switch their job positions, they could exponentially increase both their hard and soft skills, since it requires them to deal with new supervisors and diverse companies' mottos. On the other hand, there is a little probability of failure, for new hired hands when they need to reap an income by performing unfamiliar tasks. This essay profoundly agrees with the statement that young apprentices should try to gain a variety of job experiences, as it could allow them to have far better chances to pursue a promising career path and maintain a high level of motivation towards innovation and progress in their work environment. Okay, so there was a lot of nice there were a lot of nice elements to this introduction. There are some things though that I would like to revise. So let's talk about it. I felt that in a couple of places you were you used some vocabulary that was inappropriate or inaccurate. I understand that, everybody really wants to show that they have a lot of vocabulary and it's advanced and so forth and so forth. But really, it's very important, more so important actually, that the vocabulary used is accurate. Okay, so sometimes it's better to play safe. The introduction is essentially the examiner's first kind of impression of your writing, and so we really want this to be very accurate. I thought that this could have been a little shorter, okay? And if you notice, this is actually longer than your first body paragraph, which for me is a no-no. We want to really develop our body paragraphs. And that's where we really want to focus our time and our effort. And our introduction should essentially just be a formality. I mean, it does have certain roles that it needs to play. So it needs to basically rephrase the task. It needs to introduce it. It needs to kind of discuss what the dilemma is. And then it has to present your position. And that's it. Where it's really worth developing your essay and spending time writing is your body paragraphs, plural. Okay, so let's take a look at this one more time. So yeah, there are two sides of the coin when discussing the potential consequences related to changing job positions. On the one hand, if workers switch their job positions, or just their jobs, because you just said job positions, if they switch their jobs, they could exponentially increase both their hard and soft skills, since it requires them to deal with new supervisors and, this was strange, diverse companies' mottos. That's awkward. It's inaccurate. It's not the mottos that you're concerned about. It's basically the ways of functioning, their corporate culture. Okay, so those are some words you could have used. Requires them to deal with new supervisors and diverse corporate cultures actually here. All right, that would have been fine. But essentially, I thought all of this was just a little too much. All right, all of this from like on one hand and on the other hand, I think you could have shortened it. All right, because remember, you've got just a couple of different things you need to do in this introduction. So don't spend too much time a lengthy introduction when you could better use that time writing your body paragraphs. So let's continue talking a little bit about some of the grammar here. So I already told you that this was awkward. Now this is where we were. Now here was strange. A little probability of failure. I didn't understand that. This just sounded really awkward. So I thought what you really meant to say was, on the other hand, there is the possibility of failure for new hired hands. And this is incorrect expression, reap an income. All right. So all of this was really rather strange and very unnatural. And then I didn't really love this either. Profoundly agrees. It's not a collocation and it doesn't really belong here. Okay. Then it never said anything about young apprentices. So leave that out as well. Just talk about employees. That's it. All right. Um, more general, more, that's not so specific because you're really limiting yourself here. Let's see. All right. Anyway, let's move on because we spent a lot of time talking about this introduction. Let's move on and see what you said in your body paragraphs. Okay. It is often claimed that when young personnel deal with different working conditions and business contexts, S here plural, they could jumpstart their learning curve, and as a consequence of that, they might aim for management positions. According to recent studies released by the Employment Standards Administration, over 50% of top executives who run international enterprises gained several job titles before being employed as executives. It is clear that being skilled in several competences is a common pattern for professional employees. So as I told you before, this really just seems, it's a short paragraph. It's shorter than your introduction and shorter than your second body paragraph. I thought there was a little more you could have said here. I thought you could have talked about this learning curve. I mean, what are they learning? How does getting different working experiences prepare them for becoming executives? So I thought rather than just jumping straight to this statistic here, which was fine to do, but rather than just doing just that, I thought you could have talked about how the switching of jobs leads to these management positions. I thought that really needed some further development. Okay, so let's move on. Furthermore, one school of thought generally deems that senior staff who are working in the same company for a long period of time tend to be risk averse and lose motivation, lowering drastically the proposal of new business ideas that could promote innovation in their organizations. Okay, so they lose motivation, lowering. All right, you can't put drastically here. You could have said drastically lowering the proposal of new business ideas. But even this is a little unnatural too. What does it mean to lower the proposal of business ideas? I think the word choice is awkward, and that's part of the problem. So the placement of drastically is wrong. The choice of words here with lowering is again awkward. So this needs to be rephrased, okay? Let's see. This idea is supported by a highly debated scientific paper in which a group of psychologists, lowercase p, discovered that employees working at the same commercial enterprise for longer than 5 years are markedly less motivated towards innovative goals than newly hired hands, since they are afraid either to fail or lose their jobs. It is evident that, get rid of that comma here, being constantly motivated and working the extra mile, going the extra mile, not working the extra mile, that's the expression, needs new stimulus from changing job roles or functions. Okay, that's fine. That was better. Let's look at your conclusion. In conclusion, this essay would highly recommend electing to acquire a handful of both hard and soft skills in different business scenarios and not in the same organization. If personnel would put all their eggs in one basket, they might limit themselves and miss job opportunities that could progress their career pathway in an upper level. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit. I thought that some of the language was a little overcomplicated. Like, look at this. Electing to acquire a handful of both. It's just very wordy. And there are cleaner ways of saying this. Okay? So how about something more like, in conclusion, this essay recommends obtaining hard and soft skills through different business environments and not in the same organization. It's the same message, but it's just not as wordy. Sometimes wordiness creates overcomplication, okay? And you don't want that. And then I didn't like this. You had this idiomatic expression here. Remember that this is a somewhat academic essay, And so you want to avoid idiomatic expressions. You already used one here when it was going the extra mile, which, like I said, we try to avoid this kind of language in academic essays. So I wouldn't really have put it here, and I certainly wouldn't put it here, putting their eggs in one basket. And then this here, progress their career pathway at an upper level, also felt a little unnatural to me. Maybe a more natural way of saying this would have been miss job opportunities that could propel their career pathway even further. Okay, or propel their career pathway to upper levels. That would have been better. Alrighty, so I see a lot of really good things here. I'm seeing a lot of nice advanced grammar. I'm seeing a lot of vocabulary, but I want you to be careful with this, okay? Because sometimes some of the vocabulary and some of the grammar it's not consistently accurate. So you have to be careful with that. Your goal is to aim for higher accuracy with the language you're using. So what I want to do now is go straight into your task 1, which is the crop production in France. Let's see what you did with this. The pie chart depicts the major source of crop yields during the year 2017 for, what does that mean? The France third economy sector. For France's why are you saying third economy sector? I'm really confused by that. I'm really not sure what that means. You could have just said the pie chart depicts the major sources of crop yields during the year 2017 for France, full stop. Overall, it can be directly seen that cotton accounts for the biggest proportion of crop production, while rice is the lowest one. Okay, that's fine. All right, let's move on. The combined value of cereal production represents almost half of the total production. In fact, while barley and wheat account, with no S here, for 18 and 20.4% respectively, rice and corn combined are just below 5%. It seems to be the case that there is a higher probability that France might rely on importation of rice and corn in order to meet their domestic consumption. All right, this is the kind of language you don't want to use here. You don't want to make any assumptions. You don't want to draw any sort of conclusions based on what you see. This needs to be out of here. You really just need to report on only what you see, okay? And not try to like look at the bigger picture here. That's not what the purpose of this task 1 is, okay? All right, let's move on. It is noteworthy that cotton production, no S, made over 1/3 of the agriculture domestic production. This is strange here. Production, and then made is also a strange word here. So it is noteworthy that cotton accounted for over 1/3 of the domestic agriculture production, as can be seen, careful here, as can be seen from the graph, 34.4 of the total crop production is towards corn. I don't understand that. Corn is 1.7%, so I don't understand what that means. From this data, it could be deduced that the France economy meets a significant demand of cotton for the fashion industry. Again, this is the kind of thing you want to leave out. You don't want to put this here. You don't want to make any conclusions or draw any conclusions from the data that you see, okay? Okay, in conclusion, after reviewing the data in finer detail, singular, it seems that France's, '(s), agriculture production is predominantly driven by the domestic demand for cotton and sugar products. Okay, that's okay. I had a real issue with this paragraph. I didn't understand it at all. And I'll tell you something else. I also didn't understand the organization of your ideas. So you started off here by talking about cereal, okay, and then you mentioned barley and wheat, and then you talked about rice and corn, which were like some of the lower ones, and you left the highest just here as like a by the way. So I thought this was really rather unusual way of organizing this. Usually what we do in a task 1 is we start from the highest and then we go to the lowest, or we can start from the highest and then we can talk about the lowest and then we can talk about some of those in between ones. But you did the exact opposite. You started with like the middle numbers And then you then talked about cotton, and then you talked about corn. So I can't really say that I was a huge fan of this organization. Okay, so that's one thing. Um, let's see. Also, you never really mentioned when you talked about cotton, you never mentioned that this was the highest figure in the chart. And that's really important. This is the kind of information that you need to highlight here. Okay. Also, the fact that corn is the lowest. I mean, this too needs to be highlighted. Okay. So keep those things in mind, but this absolutely needed some reorganization. Let's see. Now, one other thing seemed rather peculiar to me. You mentioned sugar here in your overview, but you never mentioned it anywhere in your description, and that's a problem. You never actually discussed it, but then it was important enough to include it in your overview. And so this is also not such a great idea. When the things that you mention in your overview are essentially it's exactly that. It's an overview. It shows the most important thing. But since it is the most important thing, you do also need to discuss it in the description, in the details. And I didn't see that anywhere about sugar. Okay. So if I were going to talk about this, I would probably start by talking about cotton. I would say that it's the highest in the chart at over 1/3 of the total production of crops in France. Okay. And then I would say that the next three most produced crops in France are all somewhat lower, at around 20% each. And then I would say sugar accounts for 21.9, wheat for 20.4, and barley is 18%. It is interesting that this is half, almost half, the production of cotton. Okay. And then I would talk about these two here, rice and corn. All right, saying that again, corn is the least produced crop in France. And I would also probably mention that it is only 1/20th of the production of cotton. Okay, so that's just some ideas on how you could do this, what kinds of things you could say, and how you can organize your ideas. All right, so great. Well, go ahead and write another set of essays for us. Take all of this into consideration. Try to use some of this feedback in order to write your next set. And I'll be waiting for it, alrighty? So good luck to you.